Hello, and welcome to Media-eval, a medieval pop culture podcast, where we talk about how medieval and medieval-inspired movies, TV, and books depict the medieval world. What do they get right? What do they get wrong? And what do they tell us about how modern people see the medieval past? I'm Sarah Ifft Decker, a medieval historian, and today I'm joined by former co-host Ollie Brady to talk about some content from what I like to call the very early Middle Ages, also known as the Roman Empire, the Eagle. So, welcome, Ollie.
It's great to be back, Sarah. Although, I'm not sure if your listeners have picked up the relish with which you say former when you're reaching out me as being former co-host. Because it's not just former co-host, it's former co-host.
I own this podcast now, Ollie. I own it.
Sarah, you always own it. There's no doubt about that. But it's just like, it's the hard F on former. It hurts my feelings. Sorry, my feelings that I have, because we have to get those hard Fs.
I'm sorry. You're much missed.
Sarah, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You are teaching in the particular educational institute that I'm not going to mention because I'm not sure if we're allowed to. But
yeah, it's allowed.
Do you have a course dedicated now to medieval set movies?
I do. I offered it last fall, and I will be offering it again this coming spring.
And is there much of an uptake from students in this?
Yeah, I got it. I think it filled actually the first time. We'll see how it turns out the second.
I bet it will fill the second time too. So I want to graciously accept your thanks. For helping to prepare your syllabus for the last several years. And
I'll do like a little acknowledgement footnote for you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Anytime. Just to acknowledge that it was my idea in the first place. And also, no, it wasn't. But I will pretend this to my dying days. But also, can you just confirm to the listeners at home that your number one and most beloved movie on your movie course is in fact the 13th Warrior?
The 13th Warrior did go over very well. I would say the most popular probably was Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but the 13th Warrior was very well liked. Sarah, as opposed to some other movies that were definitely not.
You can't use Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's like one of those obviously beautiful people who, win beauty awards, right? you want to have those hard to find beauties, the undefinable beauty qualities.
So the 13th Warrior is like the girl next door who you looked at the whole time and you were like, I never realized.
Yeah, that's exactly what the 13th Warrior is. It's that movie stroke girl who lived next door. And everybody who enjoys it is a nice guy. Wait, no, this isn't very nice. But today we're talking about a movie about the ultimate nice guys, Sarah.
who you'd say should be rewarded with nice women, but there are no women, so you don't have to worry about it.
We'll get to this, Sarah. Because as far as I can tell, this movie is the most recent movie to pass the Sarah Ifft Decker test.
You mean the worst failure I've ever had?
Well, why don't you tell your listeners about yourself, Sarah?
That's supposed to be you. You're supposed to tell the listeners about yourself.
I know, but every time I come on, I end up doing this where I read your spots because I'm so used to it. And they're going, what? So... Miss Decker. Dr. Decker.
I just gave a look for the listeners in case they were wondering.
As soon as I said miss, right, before I even started my joke, I could feel a through the internet slap coming my way.
It's like it's across an ocean.
Did you know anything about the setting of this movie, The Eagle, before I insisted we watch it the last time I was on?
You mean, did I know anything about Roman Britain, or did I know anything about what this movie was and what it was about?
Well, Sarah, I know you know a lot about Roman Britain because you know a lot about all historical events. But
no, I'd never heard of this movie.
Good, because I saw this movie in the cinema, I think, and I bought it on DVD. and it was sitting on my shelf in my DVD shelf, which is actually behind me. Sarah can see a wardrobe behind me. That's actually just full of DVDs. That's not it's got no clothing in it or anything like this. It's just my
stealth DVD shelf.
Shelves. So it was in there just like gathering dust. And I don't think I've ever met another person who's seen this movie.
Wow. I look forward to hearing when the episode comes out if anyone else has ever seen this movie. I had never heard of this movie at all. Like, I did not know this movie existed.
I bet you a lot of our listeners, our listeners, they're not my
listeners.
Your listeners have seen it. I bet you, let me see, Steve Olend. I'm going to make a guess that Steve has seen this.
Steve, let us know.
Definitely. Okay, so Sarah, tell us more about the movie.
So today's film is The Eagle, which came out in 2011. It stars Channing Tatum as Marcus Flavius Aquila, who does not strip in this movie, which was a big disappointment and sorrow. It also stars Jamie Bell, who is Billy Elliot. He is also Tintin as Eska.
He is Tintin. Sorry, so I'm looking at Sarah's notes, and it says Jamie Bell, a.k.a. Tintin. I was like, his name Tintin?
Yeah.
But obviously,
nicknamed Tintin.
He's Tintin in the Steven Spielberg movie.
Yes, which is also a movie I have never seen, but I've listened to the Blank Check episode on it, so that's basically the same thing.
Listen, those Blank Check boys make every single movie sound delightful and entertaining, including movies which are not, like Tintin. Although,
so I should not watch Tintin.
Actually, I'll take that back. I kind of enjoyed Tintin.
It also has Donald Sutherland as Uncle Aquila, Channing Tatum's uncle, which does, I assume, legally mean that Channing Tatum and Kiefer Sutherland are cousins.
I think that's what it means. But
yes,
Donald Sutherland and Channing Tatum cast in this movie, it's so, like, I'm lost for words because the accent work in this movie is atrocious. It is...
My God.
The cast people who can vaguely sound at least European, not Northeastern America, because that's what it basically is. Like, they all sound like they're from, like, New England.
So we need to talk about the accents in this movie, because you've got Donald Sutherland, and Donald Sutherland is, he just sounds Canadian. He's just Canadian, and that just is what it is. Then there's Channing Tatum, who is an American, and she was doing this, like, kind of half-assed British accent. And then...
He's not doing a British accent, Sarah.
I didn't say it was a good British accent. I said he was trying to do a British accent.
I don't even think he's trying.
I think he's trying.
He sounds like he should be on Days of Our Lives. We should first start with...
The year is 140 AD, and of course it says AD. I'm going to bitch about this now, actually, okay. So in our standard dating system, you will see the use of AD, which stands for Anno Domini, or in the year of our Lord, referring to Jesus. The more neutral way to refer to this is CE, or Common Era, which means the same thing, but is less Jesus-y. And this in particular feels off here because this is a period where we are still talking about, like, pagan Romans who do not think they are living in the year of our Lord, Jesus Christ.
But
they could not give less of a shit about Jesus.
Sarah, that's for us. It's for us, all of us.
It's not for me.
Who are living in the years of our Lord. That's right.
Not my fucking Lord.
He's our... Sarah, I'm going to have to cut that out. Ladies and gentlemen,
don't you dare. Don't you dare.
So much blasphemy just got cut out. Even if I leave it in, you're going to think that there was more blasphemy cut out. But,
that's true. Now everyone's just going to be imagining all the other things I said.
What else? I might even just put in some random beeps so people think that you're swearing along. But it's for us. Like, it's not for... Like, people... Channing Tatum's not walking along into his hut as he is at the beginning of the movie and seeing the giant numbers 140 AD, Sarah.
I know, but that doesn't mean I can't still dislike it.
I'm not saying
I have the
I'm
right
not
to hate
disagreeing with you.
everything I want.
I'm just happy that we have a movie that starts with a date, and that date is not just in the Middle Ages or
That is
in
true.
early Christendom.
That is true. I do appreciate that we have a distinct date that we can use to definitively, in certain cases, say that things are wrong, as we will get to it later in this podcast. So we learned that 20 years prior to this, the Ninth Legion disappeared somewhere in northern Britain, and that 5,000 men and their standard were lost. And that in response, the Emperor Hadrian built a wall, Hadrian's Wall. But now, Marcus Flavius Aquila, the son of the senior centurion of the Ninth, is here in Britain to regain his family's honor?
Yeah.
It's like not that clear because I spent like half the movie being like, is he like looking for his dad? Because
Oh, Sarah, he wasn't looking for his dad. He was looking for a daddy. But we'll talk about that as we go along. I think that we should reclaim AD. So instead of saying Anno Domini, which is the year of our Lord, I stress that hour. I think we should change it to 20 AD. So it's 20 after Dad. And that's what Marcus Flavius Aquila is doing in this movie. He's trying to find his dad because he was a little kid growing up in Rome and his dad went off, and obviously as a centurion or a leader of a legion, he had like some sort of standing, like seen as, I would say it, like those kind of soldiers were like politicking soldiers, like generals and stuff like we have now. So he was like one of those guys. And then the fact that he managed to lose one of their standards, the eagle, as they say, is basically he brought shame on the family and shame on the entirety of the Roman Empire. So that's what Channing Tatum's coming back to do. He's going to dance his little ass. Sorry, no, that's a different movie. He's going to fight his little ass off to reclaim the eagle, which was lost.
Yeah, so he is there to reclaim the eagle and demonstrate that his family has honor. It isn't just that family that lost the eagle.
Sarah, I know you're going to bring it up later on. Were the eagles a real thing? Not the eagles. We know they were a real thing because we've all had to listen to them for 40 years. But was there such a thing as a standard? Like, was there a Roman eagle? Like, was it big?
They did carry standards into battle, which would have had something like that on it. Yes, there's some question about the exact. There's some complications to some extent, but they did bring in standards into battle like this.
Would Napoleon's eagles have been an homage to the Roman ones?
Yes, I believe so. Which is pretty standard. Like a lot of the imperial powers are essentially kind of trying to make gestures toward Romanness. So Napoleon's eagles, the Holy Roman Empire's eagles, that these are all kind of recalling the Roman Empire, essentially.
Excellent.
Yes. But there's a couple of different kinds of standards that they would have brought into battle, and one with a depiction of an eagle would have been one of them.
And was it a solid gold eagle? Because if it was, these boys are lumping that thing around like it's made out of plastic.
They, I believe, would have not been solid gold, but they would have been gilded.
No, nobody cares about gilded.
So they would have looked fancier than they were and probably been a little less heavy than something that was solid gold.
Typical Romans. It's all about how it looks. No substance.
That's what we really know the Romans for. Just all style and no substance.
All style, no substance.
That's what we always say about the Romans.
Let's put some big roads out there and then do nothing else. What about the healthcare system? Shh! Stop asking.
What have the Romans ever done for us?
Sarah, have you ever been to Britain?
I have been to Britain.
And when you were there, did it feel like you were going through the bayou?
It didn't. I was looking at this movie and I was like, wow, I feel like I'm in Louisiana, which is very close to me, as opposed to Britain, which is not particularly close to me.
It starts with them going down a little river in their kayaks. because it's the only way
It's
they'd be able to live
a
in these.
swamp. They're
And
in a
it's a swamp,
swamp.
I've never seen anything that looks like this in anywhere in Ireland and England, and I've been up and down both of these countries.
And I'm confused because it said they did film on location, like in Scotland, I think, mostly.
A lot of it was in Scotland, so
Yeah. So I'm like, where did they find this bayou?
I don't know. It could just be camera angles or something.
Yeah.
But it
It looks weird.
Does not look like your standard Northern England. I couldn't imagine Sean Bean like stepping out of the water there or anything.
Oh no. There's also cows that are hanging out there, and I really, really loved the subtitle that just informed me loud mooing, especially because the mooing was not actually that loud. It was like moderate mooing.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it. I would say it was kind of muted, like the cows were sad, maybe because they were transposed to the bayou. And they were
right.
Like, if we make too much
We've got to
noise,
get out of here.
They're going to get us, yeah.
So we've got Channing Tatum, Marcus, who is there as their new commander. And initially the Legion is pretty unimpressed since, he's the son of the guy who lost the eagle and he's pretty young. They start making fun of him as just being like, as not really knowing what to do. He like goes off for a bit and they're like, what's he doing? And they're like, he's going to go just get out his rule book so he knows what to do.
It's a weird thing. Like, I get that he's the son of a famous legionnaire, right? But the way the other soldiers treat him or the other centurions treat him is the way I would probably treat someone like that. Like,
yeah,
realistically, they're cursed. Like, he's bringing the shame of what his father did to him. And I get that's the whole point of the movie, but I find it hard to believe that he would somehow get out of centurion school and get to choose where his next location is going to be.
Yeah, I will talk about that more later, but it's weird that he's just like, I had to go to where my father went. They asked me where I wanted to go. I'm like, did they? It's the army.
Yeah, that's not how the army works, son. They tell you where you're going. And the answer is the front line. You're not choosing where you go. They want you to die.
Even if they don't want you to die, the answer is never like, oh, please tell me, would you prefer England or Spain?
Yeah, and also, if your answer is England when they ask if you prefer England or Spain, you've answered incorrectly.
Right? This was my academic career, is that my advisor in undergrad convinced me that I should study Spain instead of England because the weather and the food were better. And he was right. Well, I stand by the decision.
Better, but is the food better in Spain, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. It is.
And I like a good hearty like British meal, but the food in Spain is really good. That ham is amazing.
Whatever. Sarah, what's his right-hand man's name in this movie?
So his right-hand man is named Lutorius, and he, by the way, I will also note, plays a vampire king on True Blood, which does take place in the bayou, so Lutorius is actually in the correct location.
That's where they actually picked him up.
Yeah.
He wasn't meant to be in the movie, he was just there.
Like, just grabbed him from the bayou.
They're like, can we give you an hilarious-sounding name?
I feel like Lutorius on its own wouldn't be hilarious. What makes it hilarious is that when they say things like wake Lutorius, it absolutely sounds like they're just saying wake clitoris.
It does. I went back and I listened to it and I said it to Sarah at the time because we watched this at the same time, doing that like through the internet watching stuff. I was like, hold on a second. What did that he just call that guy? It can't possibly be that. It 100% sounds like he says wake clitorius. Like not just a little bit like it. I feel like the actor, like Channing Tatum, may have said it on purpose.
He might have.
He does not say Lutorius.
Oh no, it's wake clitorius. Yeah.
Like that, very, very quickly. So
yeah.
So basically it's his first night on the job and he wakes up all of the soldiers because he gets a feeling.
But it turns out his feeling was right. And in fact, it's because he, woke everybody up and, took decisive action and all that and had good instincts that they're able to basically, they lose some people, but they're able to mostly fight off a pretty big attack.
Yeah,
from some of the local Britons.
He'd sent out a patrol earlier in the day and who didn't come back. And then the
Right.
next day we get a big fight between the locals led by some sort of, they say a druid, but anytime I've ever imagined a druid, it's like a weakling dude with robes. This is like some sort of sexy older man with like his chest on display and he's all muscles. And like, wait, what sort of druid is this? Like, this guy's just some sort of badass.
No, like that guy's a warlord.
He does come across like a warlord, and he speaks pretty good Irish.
Which honestly, I'm genuinely impressed that they bothered for this movie. Good for them.
Yeah. So theoretically, they should be speaking Scots Gaelic, and I don't know enough about Scots Gaelic to tell you that it's markedly different from Gaelic, i.e. Irish, but that guy is speaking good enough Irish for me to be able to understand exactly what he's saying.
Yeah.
And I do not have great Irish. So it's good enough and enunciated well enough that somebody who, you know, only did the bare minimum of Irish learning can, like, what's coming up on the subtitles.
But I am impressed that even if it's not exactly the same as Scots Gaelic, I appreciate that they, like, picked a language which is like a real language that is at least relatively close to the language that they are supposed to be speaking and stuck with it, and actually people did a good job, as opposed to like a lot of the things where I've seen where either people are speaking basically nonsense or they seem to have like run whatever they're doing, like whatever they're doing, they seem to have like run through Google Translate basically, and it's a nightmare.
They put it through Google Translate, or they all just decide to do some sort of version of Pig Latin.
Right.
It seems to be a common, like, oh, it sounds enough like Latin for most people not to understand, and we don't really care about the experts.
Yep. And and then there's like Mel Gibson's Latin, which is like, where did you get these translations from? Anyway.
Man, so just always shitting on Mel.
Constantly, as he deserves. So they have this big battle, and there's this chariot that has like spikes on the wheels on each end, and this fucks up Marcus's leg, so he's not doing amazingly. But unlike there's another dude who like literally just no longer has a leg, so, you know, comparatively.
There's some good leg chopping in this. So Marcus rides out to try and save his men. They form a shield wall, which is cool. Because anytime I see the Romans doing shield wall stuff, it always makes me get a little bit excited and giddy about it, because it reminds me of reading about them as a kid and thinking how cool they were. And they do look cool in practice. I don't think they would ever be as effective as movies seem to make them out, but basically they turn into a giant turtle and are able to walk over and save their men. And then the Scots, right, the Brigant, bring out... They bring out these chariots which have giant scythes attached to the wheels, and obviously that's not great for a shield wall, so they start to run, and Marcus makes a last-ditch attempt to save his men by taking down one of the chariots, and he gets really, really badly injured, but he does manage to save his men. Yeah,
so good job, Channing Tatum. He's pretty seriously injured and wakes up to be introduced to Uncle Donald Sutherland, which is just, this is the point of the movie at which Channing Tatum was already enough. And then we bring in Donald Sutherland. And at this point, I'm just like, I just checked out on being able to suspend disbelief on these people being Romans. I'm just like, I can't do this anymore.
Donald Sutherland is... So this happens in movies a lot, right? Where you get a well-renowned, excellent actor. Like, Donald Sutherland's an excellent actor.
Oh, yeah, Donald Sutherland's great.
And I'll tell you who this happens with a lot is Jonathan Pryce. There's another example of this. Where they pop up and show up in a movie, and it's completely tongue-in-cheek to them.
Yeah.
Like, they are not taking this serious. Like, Kiefer Sutherland's dad, right? Donald is
Kiefer Sr.
100% having a ball here.
Yeah.
Like, he is chewing the scenery, but he's not acting in any way. Like, he's like just picture your jovial granddad from when you were growing up. That's who he is. I can't ever imagine any Roman of any standing ever
No.
acting like this.
No.
I'm not saying I'm not enjoying the performance, but it just feels so out of place that
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with Sarah here. It just takes you completely out of the movie.
Yeah. So, I can't quite handle these people being Romans, but that's fine. That's fine. So, Channing Tatum, I guess basically, I don't know, just kind of failed upwards. So, like, his mediocrity of, like, being in charge of one day and of having, like, gotten himself seriously injured wins him a lot of awards, but it does also win him an honorable discharge. So, because he is seriously injured.
He gets seriously injured. They give him a bracer of honor, or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
So basically, a funky looking bracelet.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if you were still a soldier, would probably mean something. But since he's getting honorably discharged, it's not really going to mean much. And he throws a little hissy fit. Like, that's what he does. He's like, no!
And he's taking this really personally when it seems very obvious that it's because, yeah, of course you have to discharge him. He seems like he physically cannot fight.
Yeah, he can barely walk.
Yeah. And and he seems to think, like, why don't you, like, believe in me? I'm like, because you can't move. That's why. It's not about you or your dad.
I saw you need help from 2 other people to take a shit this morning.
Yeah.
That's why I don't believe you're going to go back and take Scotland for us Romans.
Right.
Your inability to walk is a bad thing here.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's very silky.
He's very silky. Yeah. So he then watches a gladiatorial combat and intervenes because there's this young Briton man who seems very brave. And he intervenes to ask that this person be shown mercy and be allowed to live despite having lost.
I'm going to question the bravery aspect of this. So
He really just seems like he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he's just standing there and he's refusing to fight, right?
Yeah.
Now, I understand, like, you might be there going, I'm not going to put on a show for you people.
Mm-hmm.
But if your choices are fight and die, or do nothing and die, then surely you should fight. Like, those are your only 2 options. Like,
yeah.
Like 95% of the time, 99% of the time, like, let's realistically, 99.99999% of the time, you are not coming out of that alive. So
right, but I think it is a statement that he's not going to, do this for their amusement. And so he's, like, making that statement that he's not going to do that, and that as part of that, he then, like, he's not going to fight at all, but he's not going to, like, run or flinch or whatever.
I don't know, when I see him doing this, it makes me think to myself, this is the kind of man who won't be readily willing to kill children later on in the movie. And as we know, the sign of a real hero is your willingness to want to kill children. It would come back later, guys.
It's at least it's the smart thing to do, killing children.
Marcus is the smart thing, and he wants.
Marcus loves fucking killing kids. Yep. So Uncle Aquila then purchases this young man who's named Esca as a slave for Marcus.
That's right, guys. Our heroes buy another human being in this movie.
Yep. But they're nice slave owners. They're the good ones.
They're the good ones, Sarah. It's just, I always find, like, I understand it's something that would have been happening in 20 AD, 20 after Dad went missing. But it's still just such a weird thing to ever be in the position where, oh yeah, he bought himself a slave. Here's a present, I bought him for you because you seemed to like him when you saved him earlier in the day. Like,
and I'll talk about slavery more later and how Roman slavery actually was not race-based, but it is still slavery and it's still bad. And this movie has, like, a weird absence of, like, judgment about slavery.
Sarah, I'm not sure if you meant the inflection that you said there, but there's just something so funny about somebody going, it's still slavery and it's still bad. But more importantly, Marcus has saved Eska. Eska now owes him a life debt or something. But by life debt, this just appears to mean that the two of these guys want to get it on. Like, every single scene between Eska, played by Jamie Bell, and Marcus, played by Channing Tatum, they are sizzling on the screen.
Their sexual tension is off the goddamn charts.
It is literally off the charts. Like, this is not something people imagine. There is a scene where they bring in a new surgeon, or chirurgeon, as I'm sure it was spelled back in the day, because I love the fact that I used to have a CH at the beginning. But they bring in a surgeon, and he's going to do a better job of fixing Marcus's leg, and Jamie Bell has to hold him down, so Eska has to hold him down. And I mean, it really is like they're having sex in this scene.
The position combined with their facial expressions, it's like that it is absolutely what it looks like. Like, if you took that scene out of context, that is absolutely what every single person would assume is happening.
They are staring deeply into each other's eyes, and then afterwards, Marcus can't even make eye contact with him the next day and asks him, like, did I unman myself? Like, that's one way to describe what you did, yeah.
I also just need to note that this movie then is to some degree centered on this whole life debt thing, right? This like, oh, well, he's not going to kill me because he promised he wouldn't, and he gave his word because he owes me a life debt. I feel like the Star Wars prequels ruined that with Jar Jar Binks, and nobody can ever use that plotline again. I would also just like to note at this point, we're like, I don't know, 20 minutes into this movie? There's like not a single woman in this movie. Like, you would absolutely think like, wow, like all of these people definitely reproduce asexually.
Yeah, they reproduce asexually. Channing Tatum has several like longing thoughts about his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
does he have a mother? I don't know.
Like, but this is what I'm saying is, Channing Tatum is so manly.
Mm-hmm.
He's so goddamn manly in this movie that no woman could actually give birth to him. Like, he was fashioned out of clay or something, because he's just 100% man, and that's why Jamie Bell is so into him.
Sprung fully formed from his father's head.
He doesn't have original sin.
We do know that Jamie Bell, however, that Eska has both a mother and a father, because he does tell the really good story about how, what was it? Was it that his father killed his mother so she wouldn't be raped? Was it that?
Oh my god.
I like how this movie has managed to have no woman, but it still has a reference to rape. Like, how? How are there more rapes than women?
And women murdered than women.
Mm-hmm.
This movie fails the Bechdel test because there aren't two women to be able to have a conversation with each other.
Correct.
But it passes the Ifft Decker test.
No.
Because no named women get murdered.
There has to be a named woman to get murdered for it to pass the Ifft Decker test.
I'm not certain that was ever
that is absolutely.
Ruling.
It absolutely
Sarah, I was
is.
there when you were inventing that rule. And
yeah. And if there has to be...
Ollie, a named woman has to make it to the end. And you didn't think to yourself, what about the loophole if they don't bother naming any of the women? So they can't just...
There aren't any women! Yeah, there has to be a named woman in the first place. There's one woman who is in for, like, one frame.
They make eye contact and share a smile.
Barely. And she definitely doesn't have a name.
Of course it's barely, because Marcus has no interest in her. Because Marcus is deeply in love with Eska. Which
good for them. I'm very happy for their love.
Yeah, me too.
I just still think this movie could acknowledge that women exist, but you know.
We don't need it to exist, because Eska and Marcus can do everything that any woman can.
Women play roles beyond being sexual objects for men, in case you're interested. They could play roles other than being sex objects.
You say in case I'm interested, but you should know by now, Sarah, I am not. Sarah, tell us what happens then in the plot before I get cancelled live on the broadcast.
Just gonna end this call and record the rest myself. So then some obnoxious fancy Romans show up, including this guy who I'm like, I don't buy you as Roman either. You're just like, and she's like, he's the senator's son. I'm like, yeah, I get it. You're the senator's son. Like, you live in the United States and your father's a senator. And he's like, my father will insist I go into politics.
That's exactly what he sounds like. He is in a country club somewhere, trying to get baby Heisman to dance with him, but she's only interested in dancing with Johnny. That's right, I'm making a reference to Dirty Dancing and the rich guy that this lad looks like and acts like. He is 100% a bougie American. I'm going to have my father, John Kennedy, wants me to go into politics just like him. Like, that's
more like my father, Mitch McConnell.
My father does look a bit like Mitch McConnell.
He sort of looks like a young Mitch McConnell.
Was there ever such a thing as a young Mitch McConnell?
I mean, no, but if there was, it would look like this guy. So he basically manages just to goad Marcus into going beyond the wall to look for the eagle standard and redeem his family name.
This is another thing. So Marcus has got his leg fixed during the intense staring and grunting session with Eska. Basically sex healed him, I think. And this kid is talking about the eagle that apparently has been seen. Now, when we go to the trouble of getting to where the eagle is, how was that thing seen? Like, it is in the most remote part of northern Scotland, and the Romans don't go anywhere near it.
Yeah, I'm going to have some things to say about that later, but yes, but in the context of this movie, who is seeing it where?
Yeah. Oh, it's been seen recently. Like, where?
By who?
Like, who's coming back and giving you this information? It clearly hasn't been seen when we get to where it is. So,
yeah.
It's one of those plot points that just has to show up. But our good friend Mark is like, I'll go get it. One man can do it. And then he's like, wait, I'd better take Eska with me. Because Eska's another local. He's a Briton. Yeah, he's a Briton, but he's clearly not a Scots Brit. Like,
no.
He's from southern Britain. Like, they're not going to know. Like, when you get up to the top, all the men from the North End are grey. Like, there's a reason they're called the seal people, is because they're putting mud on their faces to make them look gay. He grey, not gay. Eska can pass for gay. He's not passing for grey. But he would not fit in with these people. So, basically, it's just because he can speak the language?
Well, and also from what I understand, they wouldn't have actually spoken the same language. They would have spoken, potentially at least, there is a possibility that they would have spoken vernacular languages which are similar enough that you kind of muddle through a conversation at least better than Channing Tatum could have.
Yeah, he definitely muddled through it. And as we find later on, he is actually more than he's letting on. His dad, whereas Channing Tatum's dad was the son of like a lead centurion, Eska's dad was the head of a clan, so he was a clan chief. So Eska is effectively a clan chief in exile because his clan has been effed up by the Romans.
Right. Which I think is slightly calm because I think actually I'm pretty sure what's happened actually it might be that clan has allied with the Romans, but whatever. We're going to be a little messy over here about exactly what is going on with these various clans, which is also something that I'm going to talk about more later. So yeah, so they're going to go north. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say about this whole plan to go north is, okay, so he did get fixed to some degree by this other doctor. But he still doesn't seem, because we see him because it seems like it's bothering him again later. So it never seems like he's actually 100% recovered, as opposed to better enough that he can walk. But it's not
ride a horse and stuff.
He's
couldn't before.
Yeah, he's less of a mess than he had been, but he's still not good enough that he can rejoin the army.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So he wouldn't pass muster, as to say, but he is still better than he was, and he's basically, I think, he doesn't really think he's going to get the eagle. He's just going up there to die. Like, I'm going on my last mission,
Yeah.
I'll get into Valhalla. I know that's a completely different idea, but, I'll die in battle as opposed to I'll just die, living out my life on a farm somewhere in, like, Newcastle.
Right. And it's like, and I wish they'd actually just like admitted that it is basically just like a suicide mission that just inexplicably succeeds. But they're acting as if this is like a valid choice that makes any sense. And it's like, no, obviously, like, you're not, like, you still do not seem like you are capable of serious fighting. But it goes back and forth a lot, I feel like, and is, like, very fuzzy on whether or not it seems to think that's possible.
He does a little bit of sword play. They get attacked a couple of times, leading to the first instance of Channing Tatum wanting to kill a child and actually killing the child this time.
Yeah.
Because they get waylaid by 3 warriors and a kid, and Eska lets the kid go, and Channing Tatum just flat out tomahawks him in the back of the head.
Yep.
And then
hashtag let him die.
He's dead. Yeah, but it's quite brutal because it's an actual child. It's not like, oh, he's a young man, 18, 17, 18. It's like, this is a 12-year-old running away because all of his friends have been killed, and you just
murdered him. Yep.
And he says,
our hero. Our hero, the child murdering slave owner.
He's a good guy. But when they're up there, they get attacked a second time, and this time it's by Mark Strong.
Yes.
Beloved British character actor who is trying an American accent, and it's so bizarre that
it's so weird.
That's how bad Channing Tatum is at acting or putting on accents. I don't mean that because I like Channing Tatum. He's a genuinely interesting actor to watch, and he's clearly charismatic, but he's so bad at putting on an accent that he can't even put on any attempt at an English or British accent, which is like the standard accent for people to put on. So much so that English people who are playing people who should have English accents, or, based on the rest of the movie should have English accents, are adopting an American accent to match him.
But as I said, I think the fact that he, is very slightly trying, and I think that makes it worse. As an American, he sounds like what an American who's trying to put on a British accent as a joke sounds like.
There's a couple of other things about this as well. I don't think anybody is ever truly successful at this. And some of the people who we get told are successful, I think sound terrible. Hugh Laurie's House. What part of America is House from?
I don't think he has a specific, really regional accent, but he at least sounds sort of plausibly American to me. But I'll tell you what, though, then the problem is. The problem isn't actually House, or Hugh Laurie, who I think does okay. The problem is then that Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange sounds like he's imitating. Yes, it sounds like he's trying to imitate Hugh Laurie, and that just completely loses it, and it's just a disaster. So you know who actually I think does the best American accent? Is Idris Elba in The Wire. I think he is super successful at doing specifically a certain kind of Baltimore accent.
Yeah. So much so that I watched the entirety of The Wire and the season of The Office that he is in before it twigged with me that he was British.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I genuinely, the first time I heard his real voice, I was genuinely surprised.
And God rest him, Michael K. Williams also does a fantastic American accent.
I know, right? Yeah. Rest in peace, Michael K. Williams.
Let's get back to this movie. Mark Strong comes in. He's playing Gerd. He was with Marcus's dad when the Night Legion went missing, and from the sounds of it, just kind of ran off.
Yeah, he was just I'm just gonna go.
I saw your dad making a valiant last stand, and I kind of slipped out the back.
It was just I'm just gonna take off. I'll see you later. Bye. Bye.
I Roman goodbye him. Just like an Irish goodbye, but you're more of a chicken and you sneak out of a battle to do it. But then, so he tells them where to find the eagle. And he says it's
They're just with the seal people. So we get to the seal people. The seal people have their skin painted this particular shade of like blue-gray, which makes them look like they are aliens.
Yeah, it is a weird choice.
And I also find it a weird choice that this movie has, as far as I could tell, exactly one actor of color who was cast in this movie. His name is Tahar Rahim, who plays the Prince of the Seal People, which I'm all for when it's actually like race-blind casting, but in this it just seems like they're like, well, let's find like a brown person to like further like exoticize these people who to like emphasize that they are like different from the Romans and also like barbarians, and it feels kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, yeah, don't make them such a clearly bad guy, especially when we talk about the child murders that Channing Tatum wants to do, and the second
and the
child
slavery
murder,
and the slavery. We have child murder and we have slavery, and then it's just like, no, these people are, and they're just like, oh, yeah, but like the Romans are great. It's these people. They're the only real bad guys. The Romans are fantastic.
So they get up with the seal people, and once they find out that Channing Tatum is a Roman, they attack them, and Eska jumps in and goes, no, he's my slave.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, straight away, I'm sitting there going, oh yeah, well, he has to pretend that he's in charge because they will just kill Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum, on the other hand, is like, fuck you. You've betrayed me. I'm going
How
to
dare
kill
you?
How dare you? I'll murder you for this. He's like, he saved your life. Like, 3 or 4 times this has happened. You just checked out the other guy's sister, and like, she was looking back at you, and he's coming over.
I actually think it's really that the sister checked him out. I actually don't think he ever checked her out because, again, and this is fine, there's zero interest that Channing Tatum is interested in women in this movie.
No, he's definitely not. He's interested in one person, and it's Eska. Mm-hmm. But it's the fact that, like, Eska saves him again.
Yeah.
And yet still, Channing Tatum is sitting there going, I'll kill you.
I'll kill you, how dare you?
Yeah, but also this comes to the other part of the thing that's a bit of an issue with this movie is, you might not believe it, that's the plot. We've now reached
we're basically done
the game of the movie.
Yeah,
right. So
the movie's basically over at this point.
To simply recap, Channing Tatum comes to the UK. The UK doesn't exist, but he comes to Britain. He gets injured in battle. He finds out that the Night Legion and the Eagle that was taken from them is up north. So after his injury and he's been discharged, he takes his slave, who his uncle bought for him, up north, and they have now located the Eagle. That's it. Like that's what the movie is.
That was the whole plot. We're good.
We're an hour and 20 minutes in. There's about 20 minutes left in the movie, and
which is just fighting.
They go and steal the Eagle from the seal people in the middle of the night.
Because, of course, Eska does, like, come back to him and he's like, dude, the whole time I was clearly, like, putting this on so that they wouldn't kill us. And so now, and obviously I was loyal to you, my boyfriend, the whole time. So let's go get the Eagle. And then it's like, oh, okay.
It's like, oh, I thought I'd lost you. Thank God. And then they crawl through a tunnel, very reminiscent of a scene from the 13th Warrior, except unlike the very clever and intelligent Vikings in the 13th Warrior, these guys are making a crap ton of noise. You would hear it's the middle of the night. You would hear them a mile away with the amount of metal that's scraping on the rocks as they travel through. Like, please try and be quiet. They get to the Eagle. They get attacked by a couple of very overconfident warriors who don't even call for help. It's just like, we'll kill these guys. They kill them. We find out that Marcus's dad may have begged for mercy. It's
that one of the people that he's fighting against tells him that, or Marcus sees that this guy has his ring and says, like, how did you get that? And the guy, like, that was my father's. And he's like, oh yeah, your father, he died begging for his life like the rest of them or whatever. But Marcus will never know. And Esker refuses to translate.
But later on, the turncoat Roman comes back and he tells him, but during this, Marcus gets injured. They're trying to escape to use a horse. A little kid comes out to tell them. And he's like, oh, whatever. And then Eska convinces him to go in and like, don't wake up your dad. Don't worry about it. You wait until the morning. It'll be nice. And basically...
He'll be so happy to hear that we've left.
He's going to be... He'd be delighted to know we've gone. He'll want us to get a nice early start or whatever. But obviously this is sealing that kid's death.
Yep.
They flee. There's... I was going to say there's a chase. It's not so much a chase as they're cutting between the seal people jogging after them and these guys on a horse. The horse dies.
Rest in peace, horse.
And because Marcus is injured, he kind of hides in a place that I've been to, which is really cool. It's called the Devil's Pulpit. And it's like a really narrow gorge that because it had limestone in it and the rivers cut into it, and it looks really cool and epic. If you get a look at it, just look up Devil's Pulpit, and it's in Scotland, and it's right beside the Glenfiddich Brewery, and I recommend you go do Glenfiddich Brewery, which is one of the best Scotch in the world, and two, it's just a really nice place to go.
Yeah, that sounds nice. So they're hiding out in this place, and Marcus says, I can't go on without me. And Eska's like, I'll never leave you. I can't because of the life debt, and that's definitely why. It's not because I'm in love with you. And then Marcus says, well, I'm freeing you now, so now you can go. But of course, he wouldn't really leave him. He goes and he fetches Gwern, Mark Strong, but also all of these other survivors of the Legion of the Ninth. And it's like 40 people. It's like, if you maybe stuck around and helped, maybe it would have turned out a little better.
There's a bunch of them.
You all just took off.
But they're all older guys who kept their uniforms.
They've been hiding their uniforms in the back of a closet for 20 years, yeah.
And then Marcus absolves them of the sin of being cowards or whatever, and they line up and fight the brave young healthy warriors of the seal people, and it ends up with them winning. That's basically it.
Yeah.
But not.
Or basically just everybody dies except for Marcus and Eska, pretty much. So I guess that means they win.
The seal prince brings his son forward, the one that Eska had told not to wake him up, and kills him right in front of them. Now, at this point, I can only assume Marcus is sitting there going, maybe he's the man of my dreams. For his casual way in which he just kills that. But they ended up surviving anyway. Gwern tells Marcus that his dad was a hero, but I actually believe the guy who told him in Irish that he wasn't.
It's a little I think you doth protest too much, because he's basically no matter what anybody told you, your father died a hero. And it's okay.
Yeah, it's one of those don't worry what anyone else says. He's definitely a hero.
Right.
But they end up winning, and then that's it. It cuts to them suddenly showing up in Rome.
Also, wait. Oh, no, it's back at the base. But wait, I do just want to say first, Marcus had a wound that was paining him so much that he could no longer go on. Yet he fights in and survives this battle.
Yeah, because Eska came back, and once he saw him, he just I
love heals all wounds.
Love heals everything. Love changes everything. Climby Fisher told us that. But they basically get back and they drop the eagle on the politician's table, and the son of the politician who was being a dick earlier looks like they have this weird reaction shot, he's all shocked and it doesn't really work. It's not
right.
That lad hasn't lost anything by Marcus comes back and drops the eagle, but they cut to this fella's face it's the most shocking thing in the world, and he's suddenly lost face. It doesn't affect him. It's not part of his plot. He's just a prick who was there. Yeah, I don't it. I get it. He was a momentary antagonist for a second at a meal, but he's not hey, in your face, Greg. You said I couldn't ski down the mountain, and I did ski down the mountain, and I'm the best skier, and we're keeping the resort open. Oh no, my dad wants to buy the resort. It's not that sort of situation. They haven't. Yeah,
they've met for half an hour. Nobody, he doesn't care.
And then Channing Tatum and
she's just weird.
Legitimately have the end of a rom-com ending.
They do.
of the two of them walking out with everybody watching them. They're clearly together as a couple. And they're like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do?
And it's like, I'll leave it up to you because he's such a nice slave owner. He's left it up to him. It
But
sure
he's no
is.
longer a slave. He freed him, Sarah.
Yeah, because he's such a nice slave owner. You know, it sure is great that these civilized Romans who are such nice slave owners that came in and saved us from these barbaric tribes.
Yeah, he's not a slave for him anymore, but he's a slave to that ass.
But yeah, no, they like, yeah. Yeah, and they do just, like, they run off together into the sunset, and it's like, you know, just acknowledge that they're gay. Like, just say so. Just have them make out, like.
Cannot stress this enough. Sometimes we watch movies and we like to talk about it, and because Sarah's woke and I like to pretend I'm woke, Sarah's actual woke and I pretend woke. We watch this. It's nice to go like, oh, those two are together, blah 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 blah. This movie, I don't even think it's subtext. Like, it is clearly on screen that these two guys are no, there are no female characters whatsoever. There's no tension between them and a woman. Eska is clearly at the age where they would be married, but he's still talking about how his mother died and his father died. Channing Tatum, you would assume, would have been married off at this stage.
So I will say that actually is valid in that there was at least a preference at this point for Centurions to not be married.
Okay.
Because it would, like, distract them from their duty.
Oh, well,
some of them did anyway, but it is valid for him to not be married.
I was assuming you just meant he had a preference for, men.
I mean, he does,
the way they look at each other, the way they interact with each other, this is a gay couple we're seeing on screen.
Yeah, and it is just like, and it feels very much like, and it feels very like queer baiting though, because it's like, it clearly is, and that's clearly the dynamic is just an immense amount of romantic and sexual tension, but you're not going to go so far as to like have them kiss. You're not going to go so far as to have them actually like verbally say anything that is like 100% clear. It's just like, it's very annoying that it's like, why, just acknowledge it. You're like 1 inch from acknowledging it, just acknowledge it.
Even the scene where Eska shows back up again, the pride on his face.
That is a look of love.
It's a look of
They
love.
are in love.
Clearing, and they are looking at each other, and they've got a little cheeky little grin on each other's face. And he's like, I told you I'd never leave you. Like,
yeah. They are in love with each other.
But they are clearly in love with each other.
Yeah.
And I am not one of those people who sees this in everything. I am 100% on board with just male friendships being on screen. I have some best friends that are better than any friends you've ever seen shown on movies that people say, people say Captain America and Bucky are gay, right? I have friends that are exactly like Captain America and Bucky, right? We hang around together. Mm-hmm. We've known each other for years. Like, we share secrets, right? But what I'm saying is, I'm all for male friendships being male friendships. Yeah. But that's not what this is.
No.
This is two gay lovers. Like,
yeah.
I don't even want it, because I don't want it to sound like I'm just saying this in a sexual way or it's these guys are boning. I actually think they're a romantic couple. And
yeah, I think there is romantic tension as well as sexual tension. Like, there are beats of the story, like the beat of the story where he's like, you betrayed me, how could you? That is like, it's a rom-com.
That's exactly what it is.
Like, this is a romance that they are just not quite calling a romance.
We have to have that 25 minutes from the end, where they have the falling out.
Yes!
And then they get back together. Actually, I didn't sell you into slavery and let you die. I saved you. Oh my God, Matthew McConaughey, that's right.
Please lean against me now.
But I said, anyway, let's move on to the next section, which is a very falso.
So I'm going to start with a quick disclaimer.
What does vere falso mean?
So vere falso means true and false, or right and wrong, and so this is the section where we explore that. I'm going to give a slight disclaimer, which is that this is not quite my main period of research. I jokingly referred to this as the very, very early Middle Ages, which is obviously somewhat tongue-in-cheek, though also an acknowledgement that periodization is a, invention and not natural to history. But, and it is also, I do actually teach Roman-related stuff in some of my courses, but just as a quick note, this is not like my main area.
And I will always maintain that we can get away with covering this stuff because you talked about Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which means anything after Holy Grail is fair game.
Life of Brian.
World.
Life of Brian.
Life of Brian,
yeah.
Not Holy Grail.
I did both, but Holy Grail is Arthurian. Holy Grail solidly makes sense. Life of Brian. Life of Brian is like a little questionable. So, and this is after that. So yeah, so I can justify it. And as I said, I do teach some Roman things on occasion. I'll be teaching the Aeneid in the not too distant future.
Ooh.
In the spring. Yeah. So to start, we begin with this opening crawl, and there's more things that I'm going to get into in the next section where I'm going to get into a lot of details about the Ninth Legion and about the Eagle. But for now, I want to mention this claim that they make that the reason Hadrian's Wall was built was in response to this specific catastrophe. It was that it was in response to the losing of the Ninth Legion. So what we know about Hadrian's Wall is that he ordered the wall built after a visit to Britain in the year 122. It's not impossible that construction actually might have begun on it somewhat earlier, but that it would have, that essentially he kind of made some changes basically about exactly kind of where it was and how construction was being done. And that it is a wall that was intended to separate the Romans from the, quote, barbarians. But there's actually no really direct evidence that it was in response to a specific military disaster, as opposed to just a general sense of this being something that was necessary for kind of establishing the frontier. And even that it was something actually that it's been argued was kind of social and cultural in some ways, as much as it was actually specifically military. And in particular, that's also, I think, important to note that it presents this area beyond the wall as this completely, isolated Roman-free area, but also even the area south of the wall, but kind of near the wall, as being this really isolated area, and as you being essentially kind of further and further away from a, quote, sort of Roman civilization. In reality, the area around the wall basically constantly has settlements and garrisons, and there are Romans there, and there are non-Romans there, and there's like a large population, as opposed to this area that they're traveling through, which seems basically deserted, and also with the exception of these people who are the survivors from the ninth, there's haven't seen a Roman in like a week or whatever. And that is definitely not true to what was actually going on.
Sarah, just since it just popped into my head, do you think Hadrian's Wall is the main inspiration behind the wall in Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I think that's actually definitively been stated. I believe.
Excellent. I don't know if it's definitively stated because I don't listen to anything G.R.R. Martin says.
I believe he has confirmed actually that that's the main inspiration for the wall. Yeah. And it is, I think, also very much kind of linked to this idea that we see in this film as well, right? Like this perception of the wall as being this barrier in a really definitive and permanent way, in a way that I think is not actually as that close to the reality, especially because in the period that we're talking about, in around the year 140, Hadrian's Wall actually isn't even the frontier. The frontier is further north. That Hadrian's successor, Antoninus Pius, actually builds a different wall, with the Antonine Wall, which is like near Glasgow, basically.
Yeah, the Hadrian's Wall isn't even that impressive, to be honest with you. Like it's when you finally get to see it, like maybe back in the day it was the biggest wall around. It's I reckon I could get over it if I wanted to.
Well, but that is the thing, right? I mean, this is one of the things that's come up of the fact that the wall isn't necessarily a defensive wall per se, or at least not exclusively a defensive wall. It is at least as much essentially a kind of symbol.
Yeah, as in a marker. This is your land, this is our land.
Yeah. And a kind of definition of, this is what belongs to the Roman Empire. And, this is what is part of Roma, the kind of Roman cultural orbit. And that, and so the way in which the wall gets depicted is pretty, I would say, kind of fundamentally inaccurate. I will also note that it is a goddamn army and that centurions don't get to just decide wherever they feel like going. They, like, get orders. However, I do appreciate that we get a real emphasis early in the film on those Romans making jokes, them all making fun of Marcus. Because Romans loved jokes. We have a lot of surviving Roman satire, so satirical plays like that of Plautus, as well as satirical poetry like that of Horace. And we have graffiti jokes scrawled on the walls of Pompeii, and actually I believe some from Rome as well. There actually is a 3rd century Roman graffiti, which is clearly Romans, just a Roman making fun of Christians.
Goddamn Romans.
A picture. I have to tell you what it is. It's too good. It's a picture of a donkey being crucified, and next to it says Alexamenos worshiping his god. Jesus. I'm really trying to get you in trouble with the blasphemy police in Ireland.
AD, obviously meaning after donkey in this in this situation.
Yeah.
I also know that Romans were very fond of drawing dicks and
they love dicks
and just putting them into the walls and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. Like, how are you going to point the way? I just put a dick here.
Yeah.
On point. Where are we going? Londinium. Stick a dick on that sign. People know it's Londinium.
Yeah. Romans loved some dick jokes. They loved some dick sculptures. I think they would have found our like wait clitoris joke very funny. Yeah. Romans had a sense of humor.
You say they would have found it funny, but they're all men, Sarah, so they wouldn't have found it at all.
Gladiatorial combat. So, first of all, I will note that one of the things the film does actually get right is that the place that Marcus is hanging out while he is convalescing is a real Roman base, Caleva Atrebatum, which is, basically a kind of Roman settlement, which was the kind of place where you could basically enjoy the comforts that you would associate with being part of the Roman Empire, which included things like an amphitheater where you could go and see gladiatorial combat. So, on the one hand, that part that you're seeing the gladiatorial combat is accurate, but this film reproduces a very common error, which is actually that we have the thumbs up and thumbs down backwards.
Oh.
Yeah, we assume, because it makes sense in our brains, that a thumbs up means let him live, and a thumbs down means # let him die.
Yeah.
But it is actually the reverse, that the thumbs up actually means, yeah, go ahead, kill the dude.
So Channing Tatum was actually trying to kill him.
In either a thumbs down or a closed fist with the thumb wrapped around it is the signal for mercy.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, that I did not know that.
Yeah. But
thanks,
yeah,
I've learned something new.
And it's a common error, which I believe goes back to, I want to say like it's earlier than that. It's like a 19th century painting. I would say Gladiator played a really big role in continuing to popularize it, actually. So it goes back, I believe, to like there's a 19th century painting that depicted it inaccurately, but I think that is actually one of the sources that Ridley Scott actually might have cited for the I thought this was so interesting, and it is indeed in Gladiator, I believe, which if I'm remembering correctly, because I've not seen it in a while. But yeah.
We can add it to the list of very early
Ridley Scott
movies.
We can add it to all the many, many reasons that I hate Ridley Scott.
Kingdom of Heaven can't be many, many reasons.
There are many reasons within Kingdom of Heaven. Thank you very much. There's also many reasons within Robin Hood. And I still have not seen, because it is not out yet, The Last Duel. But I can guarantee that's going to give me plenty more reasons to hate Ridley Scott. I can just tell you right now that I'm sure about this. So let's talk about let's talk about some of the problematic aspects of this film. Speaking of, one of the things that it gets wrong, there were in fact women in Roman Britain.
I've seen this movie, and I'm not certain where, Sarah.
But seriously though, So they have these assorted tribes based in Britain, and it does refer to some real tribes, including the Brigantes. But there are a lot of details that are rather fuzzy. There's a lot of elision between different groups. And in particular, the Seal people, the actual name is nothing. It's just, they just made that up. The tattoos and the painting and all of that we see apparently is like a just weird freeform combination of like Polynesian and Indigenous American like tattooing and painting. And it's like, and again, it's just this like weird, like all Indigenous people are the same, right? Kind of vibe.
What I thought was weird about it is if you're going with, like, if you're talking about Picts, Brigants, Regant, which was another version, just they live beside the Brigants. If you're going to go with that, they had tattoos. Mm-hmm. Like there are tattoos still around. Like there are still designs that those people had. Why not just go with them? Like even interlocking spiderweb designs, which are cool. Mm-hmm. Like you will find those in lots of the art, or not art, but like leftover artifacts from the era. So I don't understand why they would suddenly go, you know what, we're going to have tribal tattoos just like The Rock.
Right, and even the Picts are getting a little messy because they are a group that's really first mentioned in Roman sources in the 3rd century, and there's also seems to be some question about whether in the geographical area that they're supposed to be, whether that actually is an area that would have been, where the Picts would have been, as well as in fact the kind of very fact that like calling them the Picts is actually sort of also like a Roman name kind of imposed on them as far as we can, like it just means painted. Mm-hmm. And there also tends to be, I believe, also some like question about exactly what they meant by painted, and it doesn't seem like it was this. So yeah, it's a lot. So yeah, they did not, I think, do a great job of depicting the tribes, even in the sense of accuracy. Not to mention the weird like dynamic we eventually get to, where it's just like, well, these are the savages and then the Romans are civilization, and isn't it nice that we get these like Romans to like fix things through conquest and colonization, and that's just in general kind of not a great message that we've got here.
No, but remember, these are the friendly Romans,
right? Yeah, and speaking of,
they're only killing people so that they can get their stuff back.
Yeah, of course. But speaking of the Romans and not great messaging, slavery. So, on the one hand, as I mentioned before, it is, I think, really important to note that Roman slavery is not race-based the way that modern slavery came to be. So, Roman slaves were mostly captives, although in various periods there was a possibility of debt slavery. So, they would have been people who were Romans who would then basically essentially kind of sell themselves into slavery in order to pay off their debts. But most of the Roman slaves would have been captives, captured in a military context. But a number of the people who would have been, there are people who came from the same ethnic backgrounds as people who were enslaved, who then would eventually become Roman citizens. So it's, as I said, not something that is based on race in the same way as modern slavery came to be. And this is actually true of medieval slavery as well, that it's not race-based, although medieval slavery is sort of religion-based, which is a different situation. The other thing that's interesting about Roman slavery is that manumission seems to have been relatively common, and there was some amount of social mobility for people who had formerly been slaves who were then freed, as well as for their descendants. So on the one hand, there are ways in which I think this movie, I appreciate that it acknowledges some of those aspects of slavery and the ways in which pre-modern slavery is really different in a lot of ways from modern slavery. But on the other hand, slaves are still understood as property and are treated as property, and despite the fact that some slaves do eventually end up becoming freed. And so the look at this really nice slave owner dynamic is also just not a great look, and it seems like it really is intended to kind of overly sanitize Roman slavery.
It is like anytime it pops up in any movie, like I don't care where it's set, but in particular in a situation like this, if they're a slave owner, you don't have to justify them and show them being a nice slave owner.
Yeah. It seems like we really shouldn't have to be saying that films should take an unequivocal stance that owning other people is bad. And yet apparently we do have, that's a thing that we have to like criticize, that films can't take an unequivocal stance that slavery is bad.
But Sarah.
Yeah.
They did go to the north of Scotland and they went up there to get the eagle. So
yes,
maybe you should tell us about the Historia et Veritas.
So for this I'm going to talk about the Ninth Legion and the Eagle of the Ninth. And in particular the fact that you've got to feel a little bad for the people responsible for this film, because there are actually things that would have been at least the standard theory at the time the film was made that then got really undermined within like several years after the time the film was made. So essentially, we know that there was a Ninth Legion. We know definitively that this legion was based in and fought in Roman Britain in the early 2nd century. We know that it disappears from a lot of Roman records, that there aren't records that talk about it explicitly, starting around the year 120, which has led people to believe they disappeared around the year 120, and that starting in, I believe, the year 197, there are lists of the legions that are active that are seemingly comprehensive, and at that point, the Ninth Legion is not included in that list. And so we can definitively say that basically at some point by then, they have been wiped out, basically, that they have disappeared. Mm-hmm. And the film, as well as the novel on which it was based, which I will note is a 1954 novel called The Eagle of the Ninth by Rosemary Sutcliffe, which is like basically a children's / like what now might be called a YA book.
When something is described as YA, so YA didn't exist in 1950.
Right, yes. That's essentially a designation that I'm imposing on it, because it seems like it's not really for children, but it's not like, yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to get across here is there are lots of books now which get designated as YA books.
Yeah.
But don't have the tropes of YA books. They were written for children or people in their teens in the 40s and 50s and 60s, which now people come along and go, oh, The Famous Five, sure, that's a YA novel, right? But if you read The Famous Five now, it is so tame in comparison to something like The Hunger Games. Mm-hmm. It's so tame in comparison to something like Divergent.
Right. Yeah, and I just noted in part that essentially like it is something that is, from what I gathered, it seems like it is a lot tamer than this movie is, which is rather bloody. Yeah, So yeah, just an interesting adaptational choice. But anyway, all this to say that there was a historian, Theodore Mommsen, who suggested, basically based on the timing that we knew of at the time, that the Ninth got wiped out in a fight against the Brigantes, who I believe are kind of on and off, allied with the Romans sometimes and sometimes rebelling, and that they were wiped out in this fight against the Brigantes at Eboracum, which is now York, because York is a Viking name that has nothing to do with this, is Jorvik, that has nothing to do with the Latin name, which is Eboracum, in around the year 108, so actually even before it is presented as being. And then Sutcliffe popularizes this theory in her novel, and then that gets to be this movie. And this movie came out in 2011. But then in 2015, they found inscriptions that suggest that the Ninth still existed and was based in what is now the Netherlands in around 120 or so, and around kind of 120 kind of the early 120s, basically. Mm-hmm.
And that they're years before this movie was set.
Yes, so in basically the period where the Ninth, according to this movie, was supposed to have been getting brutally wiped out by the Seal people, what the evidence suggests is that instead they were just like chilling in the Netherlands. I mean, I'm sure they were fighting, but you know.
We bugger off to where the Dutch are and just hang out in the lowlands. It'd be fun.
Yeah, just chilling out in the Netherlands. And that there are people also who were identified or who were connected with the Legion at around that date who didn't die, who like we know that they then like went on and had successful careers, and so it is not the case that so it's very clear that this is not the date, or at least there's a pretty good argument to say that like we can't assume that the Legion gets like totally militarily wiped out at this time. we do, as I said, still have reason to think that the Legion had been basically militarily wiped out by the end of the 2nd century. And because of that, there's now a couple other theories. One is that they were wiped out in Judea during the Bar Kokhba revolt, so this kind of second big Jewish revolt against Rome in around the year 132. And others have suggested that it was wiped out in the war against the Parthians, this Persian group, in around 161 to 166, essentially. There's also people who say that the inscription isn't necessarily definitive enough evidence to disprove the old theory, and that maybe we should still assume that they got wiped out back earlier in the 2nd century against the Britons. But the story that this film presents as very kind of definitive is certainly one that is much more heavily questioned now than it would have been when the movie came out.
Yeah.
And this is also true in some ways of the Silchester eagle, which is the other big inspiration of the story. So essentially, Sutcliffe basically combined the story of the lost Ninth Legion with this essentially archaeological find from 1866 in Silchester. So during, and actually at this Roman site, the Calleva Atrebatum in southern England. So the discoverer of this object, Reverend Joyce, suggested that the eagle had been the standard of a Roman legion and that it got torn from its staff dramatically during battle. And then, as I said, Sutcliffe combined this with the story of the Ninth Legion, and then we get this reproduced in the film. But there has then been recent scholarship by a couple of Romanists, people who work on Roman Britain, Michael Fulford and Emma Durham, which have questioned this aspect of the story as well. And essentially that based on mostly, I would say, stylistic grounds, but also some kind of complications in terms of the context in which the eagle was found, now argue that it's not actually the standard, and that instead it's much more likely to have been part of a statute of the god Jupiter. That would then include like an eagle kind of seated near him. And also I will note that the eagle also looks very little like it does in the film, including the fact that, we've talked about the eagle in the film as like being very obviously like gold or at least gilded. And that would have, in fact, been standard for eagles who were, well, on standards, but that the Silchester eagle, this particular discovery, is not gold and, in fact, shows no signs that it was once gilded, which is something that would probably show up, that would probably have left some traces.
I've seen it Sarah would have spotted me looking at thing, because I've heard of the Silchester eagle, because I've heard of J.G. Joyce before, and I was just looking it up. Like, it doesn't look anything...
No, not at all.
Anything like what I imagine. And I've seen Roman eagles depicted a million times in various different things, and it does not look like the Silchester.
No, it looks nothing like this. And that's one of the things, right? Is that stylistically, it's not quite what you would expect from the eagles that were associated with the standards in a variety of ways, and that it looks much more like representations of eagles that we see associated with these statues. So we've had a lot of discussion surrounding the elements of this film, which have made it even like a lot less historically accurate for us watching in 2021 than an audience a decade ago.
Yeah, which it's nice to see something like that, just like in the 10 years since this movie has come out, that historians have made up a new story. Because
we found additional evidence.
Sorry, they found an additional leather sandal somewhere, and they were like,
we found an inscription. We have found an inscription.
They found an inscription. But like, all joking aside, like, it's great to see that 10 years later, like, they wouldn't be able to make this movie with the plot it has now, because there would be so many people ready to debunk it the day before it even hits the cinema, which is what, like, the historical equivalent of Neil deGrasse Tyson, like, jumping in to go, well, really, they didn't have laser swords. So, so I just think it's great. I like when I hear, I was going to say scientific knowledge, but historical knowledge has moved on.
Yeah, that we've made just new discoveries, and I think that is cool, especially, and I think it also really emphasizes the ways in which archaeological evidence, in particular, has really expanded in a lot of ways. Some of the and incorporating his archaeological evidence into history has really expanded our knowledge in a lot of ways, and is really an exciting way in which we can see not only new interpretations but also often new evidence. Of course, there are certainly examples of people finding new just documents and archives that people haven't looked at as well, but that archaeology in particular has really led to some really fascinating revisions over the last decade or so.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. So at this point, I think we can now go into the segment where we talk about a story that we might want to create inspired by this one, which we call
Fabula Nostra. I'm getting so much better at these, Sarah.
I know. I'm just gonna keep this and cut this in for episodes you're not on.
You can cut them in anytime you want, Sarah. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm starting to feel like a broken record because the last time I was on, which is not the first time I've done this, but I've gone to the David Gemmell well, where I've picked something that he wrote. So David Gemmell has two separate little series. One is about the Regant or the Brigand. And it's about them fighting the Romans and about Conovar, the last leader of the Brigand, who was like a real historical figure. And that two book series is very, very good. And the first one's Sword in a Storm. And he also has a series called Ghost King, which is about King Arthur and how King Arthur was secretly a Roman. And it's also about the Lost Knight Legion. It's legitimately about the Lost Knight Legion, and how it involves magic. And I would like to see that story get made into a movie. And I feel really bad because I do this every time. But the story of Ghost King involves so Arthur as a Roman. It was his dad who led the Legion, and that's how he ended up being just like a random kid, like as in an orphan, because his dad was gone effectively. And he gets taken in by a guy called Culann Lachferlach. It's been a while since I pronounced that. And Culann trains him up to be a warrior, and then finds out who he is, and helps him to introduce him to Guinevere, who is effectively his adopted daughter. And by the end of the first book, has created a situation where, because it involves so much magic, they can go back in time and rescue the Ninth Legion to then help him use this Ninth Legion to take control of Britain effectively. Right?
Interesting.
And it's very interesting. But the plot twist to this is it's actually a version of The Great Betrayal, because while they're doing this going back in time, it turns out that Culann Lachferlach ends up getting de-aged by about 25 years and then shows up at the gates of King Arthur's new home as a sexy young man. And he introduces himself as Culann, the Lord of the Lance. And as it gets telephoned, because I learned recently not to use what I've always called telephone, but it gets telephoned back up to Ting as the Lance Lord or Lancelot. And it turns out that Culann is actually Lancelot in the story, and that leads into the second one, which is the Last Sword of Power, obviously about Excalibur, and how the Lance Lord lances Guinevere, and I'd like to see that get turned into a movie. So
interesting.
Nowhere near as much effort as I would usually put into this, but I would really like to see that. But as an aside, I'm going to also give a slightly different version of this that has been turned into a movie, and Sean Bean, an actor I mentioned already in the show, did a series called Sharp back in the 90s on British TV, and it's brilliant, and it's based on the Bernard Cornwell Yeah, the Bernard Cornwell novels. Remember we watched The Last Kingdom for a little bit on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
We watched 2 episodes.
It's very great.
So he wrote that. And it's the same author. But so Sharp is about the Napoleonic Wars. And one of the episodes, so they're like 2 episodes long, an hour and 15 minutes each episode to make a little series. So one of them is Sharp's Eagle. And it's about them trying to capture a Napoleonic eagle for Wellington. And it's near the end of Napoleon's Wars, and that was his dream, was because he lost something at some point. So it was like, I want to regain my honour by taking an eagle. And it's about how Sharp goes behind enemy lines effectively to take down and capture an eagle. So
interesting.
Read the David Gemmell novel, which I hope gets turned into a movie at some stage. And he has been passed on now for, I think it's coming up on 15 years. So effectively his movies will, or his rights will pass soon. So there are a ton of great books, and that's just one of them that could get turned in. And until then, watch Sharp's Eagle. Also, Sharp, an amazingly good show. I recommend it to everybody.
All right.
Way better than you think it will be, because you'll sit down and watch and you're like, oh, you dirty bastard. Which is what Sharp sounds like.
Good old Sean Bean.
Oh, I'll fucking do ya, I will.
So my version of the movie that I would like to make is, what if we actually just had a queer love story? What if we actually just basically had like kind of Brokeback Mountain, but set in Roman Britain?
We did, Sarah.
I know. I want the
eagle.
I know. I want the version where they are actually acknowledging this. The other main change that I would like to make is that I think having that relationship be between a slave and his owner is not a great dynamic, because I think there are a lot of questionable consent issues that could be raised with that kind of sexual relationship. So, the other adjustment that I would like to make, in addition to having it be actually just literally even like about, like, it's not actually even about the search for the eagle. It's just a queer love story set in Roman Britain. And in addition, it's going to be, instead of a slave and his owner, in addition, so like around at these frontier zones, in addition to there being the Roman legions, there are also these auxiliaries, which are made up primarily of locals who are, who basically they kind of hire, and that's, something that you can do as a local person is, you can basically end up fighting for the Roman Empire. And so he's going to be a Britain auxiliary. And I think it'll be a really interesting story of a queer romance, and two people as well thinking about their cultural differences. I think they will have a beautiful romance with a pleasant sex life.
There's a good chance that I've cut out the joke that I just made. So just be aware that I made myself giggle.
I think it'll be a beautiful story.
It actually does sound nice. Do you have any actors in mind?
I'm fine with just keeping Channing Tatum and Jamie Bell. Yeah. I think they had a very good sexual and romantic tension in this movie.
They 100% did.
Yeah.
I was watching it going, oh, I wish I had somebody who loved me like this. This is amazing. Man.
Yeah. No. As I said, I think that had this film acknowledged the reality of their relationship, I think it would have been rather touching.
I think it would have been, yeah.
Yeah. So that's just the movie I want to make. Yeah, just bring these guys back. I will say though, maybe replace some of the other central characters with people who might be able to do some mildly convincing accent work, or at least seem less bizarrely out of place.
I insist we replace Donald Sutherland with Kiefer. Marcus, listen to me.
We're running out of time.
We're running out of time. You need to get the eagle and also his love.
But I really like, so my version is, as I said, there's not even a war, it's just a love story. So we're running out of time for you to introduce your boyfriend to my father.
Your dad would be very proud of you. Do I make myself clear?
Yeah.
He says that so often in 24. Do you understand me? Do I make myself clear? Yes, you do, Jack. You've got a gun. I get it.
It's very clear.
Remember that time I invaded the Chinese embassy? That got me fucked up. Audrey, I love you.
He's just, I think he could just be there. He could just be there like their commander.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He definitely could be.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we should go on to the final segment, which is Estimatio, where we give our ratings of the movie on a scale of 1 to 5, or -1 to the 13th Warrior 6. So, Sarah, what would you give this out of 5?
So, I went back and forth. This is a fun movie that doesn't take a lot of attention. But I don't love the politics of this movie, is actually really what it is. Like, I don't love the, like, Romans versus barbarians dynamic that is very, like, imperialist and, like, pro-colonization. And I don't love the weird, like, slavery is good vibe that we're kind of getting out of this movie.
It's good for the slave owners.
Right. And I just... We've watched a number of movies that have not passed the Ifft Decker test, according to which there has to be at least one named woman who doesn't die.
I don't remember that being the clear indication.
That is absolutely the clear indication.
As long as the named women don't die.
Nope,
And
there has to be at least one named woman who doesn't die. And usually when films fail, it's because they, you know, have a character who is important but who doesn't actually really get a name, or they have characters who are important who are killed off. I think this might be the first thing we've covered where they're just, or that I've covered for the podcast, where there just straight are no women really in this movie. Like, there's the one, like, sister, whatever, that he looks at, that, you know, they, like, exchange looks for a second and a half. But, like, she doesn't have a name. She's not a character. You don't know anything about her.
Sure, her name is Seal Prince's sister.
That's not a name.
It's her name in the credits at the end.
So I feel like this is really, in some ways, I mean, on the one hand, it doesn't have any violence or brutality against women because there aren't any. But on the other hand, I feel like they literally managed to make an entire movie without a female character is also in its own way like a new low, I feel like, for this podcast.
You say low.
Yeah, I do. I say a low. So I think I'm settling on like a 1.75.
Okay.
Yeah, that there's things that I've given a 1.5 that I hate more. So I think that 1.75 feels right. But wow, seriously, there are no women in this movie.
There are definitely no women in the movie. Not a single named woman.
Not a single woman with more than a minute of screen time, even.
I don't even think any of them have a minute of, like, it's
at most a minute. It's maybe more like, what, 30 seconds?
Like,
sister?
It's a brief scene of, like,
yeah,
looking at each other, and then in a couple of other scenes there are women in the crowd. Like, that's
like, I don't think there's more than a minute of this movie where you see women.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like, combined,
the entire thing. Yeah, combined.
Yeah.
I'd say you'd be lucky to have a minute. Yeah, so obviously I have a different set of rating scales when it comes to the movies, right? Because I don't really need all that much historical accuracy, and as a blokey bloke,
you don't care if there are any women.
That sort of stuff. No, it's not. Sarah, way worse than that. And trust me, I do a good job of making myself sound bad. But I'm gonna give this a 2.25, so that
I feel like you're just making fun of me with this, like, getting down to quarters.
No. So that it can average out at 2, which
Okay.
is what I realistically think the movie should be worth
That's
between
fair.
the two of us. Right. I it's hard to say I enjoyed this movie, right? There are some things in it that I enjoyed,
Yeah.
but it's so light on plot. It's so inconsistent within its own narrative. The shocks or revelations that happen. It's like you meet a character, you don't know who he is. Revelation happens 8 seconds after meeting them, right? The knowing looks that come from certain characters that absolutely foreshadow that there's more to them than meet the eye. Like the first time we see Eska and somebody mentions the eagle and he's like in the background and he's like a dog sniffing a sausage in the house next door. Like he is awake and ready to pay attention. Like all of this is bad. It's bad filmmaking. But massive advantage is the entire thing is 1 hour and 39 minutes long, which is a breeze in comparison to some of the movies we've watched before. In particular, a lot of medieval set movies seem to think that making it 2.5 hours adds epicness. This movie doesn't try to add epicness. It has some violent scenes, and then it's basically a little chase movie at the end. And because of that, I'm okay with it, but the politics are bad. The lack of women is bad. The unwillingness of them to acknowledge that the two central characters that they've clearly filmed as being in love with each other aren't in love with each other.
Like, make them gay. Just make them gay.
Like, just admit it and say these guys are gay. But the movie itself is okay. Like, it's 2 out of 5 or 2.25 just to make the average 2. Like, it's a 40% of a good movie.
If you want to watch
it, you're not going to be angry that you watched it.
Yeah. If you want to, even with being like annoyed at various things, I'm not angry that I watched it. It was like, I had a perfectly pleasant time and it was less than 2 hours of my life.
That's a huge, but I cannot stress enough how much a medieval set movie being 1 hour and 40 minutes is a bonus.
As I mentioned earlier on this podcast, I do actually now teach a medieval movies course. I'm actually adjusting my syllabus for next semester, not even because of things that didn't work per se, but because I had made the decision that I basically had 3 weeks in a row where I watched 3-hour movies that I hated, and I can't do that to my brain again.
It's a decent movie. It's not a good movie, but it's definitely not a bad movie.
If you are bored and don't want to put like a lot of thought into watching an action movie, go for it. There's some nice scenery. By which I include both the, the Devil's,
Oh yeah, the Devil's Pulpit.
We've got the Devil's Pulpit, and we've got Channing Tatum's ass, and those are both perfectly nice scenery.
Yeah, and just watch it for the scene where he's getting the surgery done, and Jamie Bell is like holding him down, and like it is so sexually charged. It's not even funny. Like,
as I said, I think if this movie, like, if you cut this movie just slightly so that you actually like completely acknowledge the immense amount of sexual and romantic tension between these two men, I think it would be a much better movie.
Definitely. Sarah, where can people find me on the internet?
You're a ghost.
I'm a ghost. That's right, people. Don't come looking for me, because I'll come looking for you.
But you can find you on past episodes of this podcast.
Yeah, recently I did an episode of Megan Griffin's podcast, Judging Book Covers, talking about the Fear Street movies. So when this comes out, that should be round about the time that should be coming out as well. So they're on Netflix and they're based on the R.L. Stein novels, and it's 3 movies that are great. I hate horror movies, guys. If you've listened to this podcast, you know I did a Halloween episode with Sarah, and I hated every second of those 88 minutes that felt like 7 million hours. Right?
That movie did feel so long.
Oh my god, it felt so long and was so short. But the 3 Fear Street movies, I loved all of them from start to finish. Even more than Megan did, and Megan is a horror aficionado-y type person. Like, they're a breezy watch. So listen to that episode and then watch those. So yeah, find me on other podcasts, but find me on previous episodes of this where I'm the former
ex-co-host. Fired. No, just kidding.
And Sarah, where can people find you?
So you can find me here on this podcast, to which you should subscribe in your preferred podcatcher app, and also follow on Twitter at Media-eval Pod and join our Facebook group. And you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sarah Ifft Decker, and you can email me at media.evalpod@gmail.com.
And one last thing just popped into my head. With my transition year students this year, our podcast of choice, because I do a class where I teach kids how to make podcasts, is called Criminal Finds. And it's so apparently there's a show called Criminal Minds about the criminal behavior unit and or behavioral analysis unit or something in the FBI. So my students are going to talk about crimes that happened in Ireland. And just do like a quick 20-minute podcast. So if you look up Criminal Finds on your podcatcher of choice or on SoundCloud, you might find some of my students talking about it. The one that we did last year, I was a part of the podcast, but I'd rather not be this year. So we haven't recorded our first episode yet, but hopefully it'll just be the students, and
exciting.
I don't hear my voice at all. But listen to it because they're good kids.
Yeah.
And it's about crimes in Ireland.
Ooh.
So you'll never know if they're real or not. It could be leprechauns.
and nobody in America has ever heard of anything that's happened in Ireland since like 1918. So
Perfect. Sarah,
America, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you all for listening to Media-eval. Bye.
Bye.